Prologue. Kai walks the quiet halls of the castle, reflecting on his role as enforcer and his past. He visits Gale, who raised him like a mother, in the kitchen where she prepares his yearly sticky bun tradition. Their conversation reveals that his brother Kit, now king, has assigned Kai his first mission, targeting a woman they both know. Gale confirms Kit has not left his study since his coronation, and only made one bun, knowing Kit would not join. Kai takes the bun and heads to the gardens, passing guards and memories of his childhood. He makes his way to a willow tree where he always spends this day, lighting a match in place of a candle for the bun. Sitting beneath the tree, he softly wishes Happy Birthday, A, honoring someone deeply important to him before blowing out the flame and letting the darkness settle. In Chapter 1, Pedin hides in her childhood home, wounded from her battle with the king and haunted by his taunts about her father's death. She searches beneath the floorboards and discovers weapons and, unexpectedly, her father's journal. Though injured and alone, she prepares supplies and plans to flee Ilya, aiming to reach Dor where elites do not exist. Before she can leave, Imperials led by the enforcer, Kai, break into her home. She scrambles up the chimney to avoid capture, listening as soldiers search the house. Kai lingers, his voice shifting between mocking command and vulnerable confession, revealing he still dreams of her. Pedin, hidden above, fights panic as memories of blood and betrayal overwhelm her. The Imperials eventually leave, but Kai stays, admitting he has not yet found his courage. Moments later, her hiding place and home are engulfed in flames, leaving her fate uncertain. In Chapter 2, Kai exits Pedin's burning home, appearing calm as flames consume it. His Imperials react nervously while he recalls pulling her dagger from his father's neck and reflects on his grief and conflicted feelings. Spotting Pedin's silver hair through the smoke, Kai orders his soldiers to capture her. She escapes across rooftops, but Kai throws her dagger, injuring her leg. Despite being wounded, she disappears, forcing him to command a full search. While hunting her through emptied streets, Kai finds a dead Imperial killed by one of Pedin's knives. He reflects on her aversion to death, recalling how she had wanted to bury enemies during trials. Out of respect for her, he carries the soldier's body to ensure burial, questioning how she has changed him. Kai continues the pursuit, weighed down by exhaustion and the thought that Pedin's grave could be the next one he digs. In Chapter 3, Pedin hides on a rooftop, watching Kai carry away the Imperial she killed to bury him, revealing an unexpected gentleness that unsettles her. Once night falls, she evades Imperial patrols through the alleys of Ilya, knocking out a young soldier before finally reaching the Scorch's desert. She begins the difficult journey toward Dor, reflecting on Ilya's isolation and elite oppression. Haunted by memories of her best friend Adina's brutal death at Blair's hands, Pedin vows revenge. She pushes through exhaustion and pain, wearing her father's oversized jacket for comfort, and tends to her fresh thigh wound inflicted by Kai's precise throw. Determined to survive despite her injuries, she presses deeper into the desert, knowing Kai is hunting her. Pedin steels herself not to hesitate again, resolved to face the dangers ahead and the enemies she has sworn to kill as she continues her escape from Ilya. In Chapter 4, Kai visits Kit, who has secluded himself in his study since their father's death. The brothers share a tense conversation, both struggling with grief and their shifting roles as king and enforcer. Kit questions Kai about the blood on his shirt, learning Pedin killed an Imperial but escaped. Kai reveals she is likely crossing the Scorches toward Dor or Tando, and he plans to pursue her with a team. Their exchange becomes strained as Kit recalls Kai's past disobedience in sparing children and questions his loyalty, suspecting his feelings for Pedin could interfere with his orders. Both brothers lie about no longer caring for her while privately acknowledging their feelings. Kit orders Kai to bring Pedin back alive, not as an act of mercy, and Kai pledges loyalty to his brother above all else. Leaving his enforcer's ring behind, Kai departs, vowing to earn Kit's trust again. In Chapter 5, Pedin struggles through the Scorch's desert, dehydrated, exhausted, and injured after 3 days of relentless travel. Her water and food supplies are nearly depleted, and she is plagued by mirages, blisters, and extreme temperatures. She talks to the sand out of loneliness and fatigue, her mind fraying under the harsh conditions. At night, she takes brief rests, shivering under her father's jacket and wrapped in a scratchy blanket. Haunted by vivid memories of Adina's brutal death, Pedin avoids sleep, fearing the nightmares that come with it. She clings to the vest Adina made for her, determined to keep her promise to wear it and survive. Her grief fuels her resolve for revenge against Blair, who murdered Adina, and she pushes herself onwards through the desert despite her physical weakness, exhaustion, and fear, focused only on survival and fulfilling her vow of vengeance. In Chapter 6, Kai dreams of Payton confronting him with blood-stained flowers, accusing him of being covered in death. He wakes screaming in the desert, shaken by the vivid nightmare. 4 days into their search, he and his group of Imperials have found no trace of Payton, though Kai is haunted by her presence, imagining glimpses of her in the dunes. He reflects on her survival skills, doubting even the harsh Scorch's desert could kill her. At dawn, Kai orders his men to prepare for another day's journey, breaking camp and mounting their horses to continue the pursuit. As they ride, he is consumed by thoughts of her, questioning whether she manipulated him and the kingdom to aid the resistance and assassinate his father. Despite these doubts, his obsession grows, and he vows to find her soon, believing answers to his questions and their complicated history await when he finally catches her. In Chapter 7, Payton is near collapse after days in the desert, dehydrated and injured, but reaches the outskirts of Dor. A guard finds her and carries her toward the city, but she attacks him, mistaking him for Kai, breaking his wrist before realizing her mistake. The guard recognizes her as the Silver Savior, and reveals Ilya placed a 20,000 silver bounty on her head, dead or alive, with her face known even in Tando and Isram. He attempts to arrest her, wounding her shoulder and nearly strangling her, but Payton kills him with his own dagger. Shaken, she panics over taking another life, retching and wiping blood from her hands while haunted by guilt. Despite her injuries and exhaustion, she leaves his body behind and enters Dor, bloodied and traumatized. Payton continues forward, consumed by self-loathing and fear, knowing she is hunted and marked as a notorious criminal across multiple cities. In Chapter 8, Kai examines a dead guard stabbed through the heart, confirming Payton killed him and is nearby, likely injured. He orders the body returned to Dor's guards and leads his men into the city, where hostility toward elites is clear. A guard confirms Payton's identity and bounty, 20,000 silvers, dead or alive. Kai's presence as the enforcer draws attention, and he moves through the crowded streets while citizens whisper his name. At a merchant's stall, he faces open disdain, paying double for food, and reflects on Dor's hatred for Ilya and its treatment of ordinaries. Using strategy, Kai changes tactics, ordering his men to split up and avoid drawing attention, hoping to gather information about Payton's movements. He slips into the crowd, hiding his identity and status to continue the search. His focus remains on tracking Payton, aware she is injured but dangerous and determined to bring her back alive. In Chapter 9, Payton spends 2 days in Dor, bargaining for food with a merchant named Francis, while hiding her identity beneath a scarf to conceal her silver hair and wanted posters offering 20,000 silvers for her capture. She reflects on starting over among ordinaries, steals extra loaves to survive, and removes a bounty poster bearing her face. Realizing she needs money for shelter and food, she follows men to an illegal underground cage fighting ring. After failing to pick pockets in the packed crowd, she decides fighting will pay faster. At the payout table, she pressures the organizer, Raphael, first by insisting on a fair cut, then by implying she could expose the illegal gambling. Raphael tests her nerve, threatens consequences, and finally agrees to give her a bout in an hour. When asked for a name, Payton adopts the alias Shadow, preparing to fight and earn coin while remaining hidden in Dor. In Chapter 10, Kai searches Dor's streets alone at night, frustrated by his failure to find Payton. A failed pickpocket attempt leads him to a young girl, Abigail, who wields his old knife and reveals she was one of the ordinaries he previously banished. She questions if he came to kill her, but he assures her she's not his target. Hoping for information on Payton, he asks about the Silver Savior, but Abigail hasn't heard anything. She then mentions a new favorite in an underground fighting ring and agrees to show him, warning him not to steal her winnings. As they walk, Kai gives her tips on pickpocketing, reflecting on Payton's thieving skills and how she once distracted him. Abigail leads him to a hidden cellar entrance, revealing her world of gambling and survival. Kai notices similarities between Abigail and Payton, haunted by her memory and his role in shaping Abigail's path. In Chapter 11, Payton fights in Dor's underground ring as a shadow, defeating the crowd favorite Slick in a brutal match despite exhaustion and injuries. She maintains her disguise with a scarf, hiding her silver hair and identity as the wanted silver savior. Her victories have built her reputation and earned enough coin to consider staying in the fights for steady income. After securing her winnings, she exchanges banter with Raphael, the fight organizer, who offers her a future in the ring. Pedden feels a fleeting sense of accomplishment and hope for stability, though she remains cautious. However, her relief shatters when a familiar commanding voice echoes through the cellar, calling her out for another fight. The voice belongs to Kai, the enforcer who has been hunting her, confirming he has finally tracked her down. Pedden's cover is at risk, and her escape is in jeopardy as tension spikes in the underground arena. In Chapter 12, Kit isolates himself in his office for over 2 weeks, consumed by grief, regret, and the weight of the throne. He reflects on his strained relationship with their late father, who disapproved of his gentleness and preferred Kai's ruthless nature. Kit feels like a shell of himself, writing bitter letters and pouring his emotions into ink-stained pages as he spirals. He thinks constantly of Pedden, recalling her deception, their brief connection, and his father's encouragement to spend time with her, while also dwelling on Kai's conflicted feelings for her as he hunts her down. Haunted by betrayal and his father's judgment, Kit acknowledges the bitterness that has overtaken him and feels trapped in the palace, a prisoner of responsibility and grief. Despite his turmoil, he writes again, this time longing to move away from portraying himself as a villain, revealing his deep internal conflict and desire for redemption. In Chapter 13, Kai locates Pedden fighting incognito as Shadow in Door's underground ring. He publicly challenges her as Flame, cornering her into accepting a second match to protect her new reputation. Pedden slips out before the bout. Kai pursues her to a rooftop, where she holds him at knife point and proposes terms. They return to the cellar and fight. If she wins, he lets her go. If he wins, she will go quietly back to Ilya. After a charged standoff that includes a brief kiss, both agree to the deal. They re-enter the cage. Trading blows, they fight while masking their identities. Kai pins her and threatens to expose a strand of her silver hair to trigger the bounty and force compliance, asserting he has effectively already won. Pedden counters by tearing off his bandana, revealing the Prince of Ilya to the crowd as their confrontation escalates. In Chapter 14, Pedden and Kai's fight in the cage escalates after Kai's identity is revealed to the crowd. He overpowers her, threatening to expose her silver hair, and she pretends to surrender before attacking him, kneeing him and flipping their positions. Pedden draws a hidden blade, pressing it to Kai's cheek and threatening to kill him, but hesitates. Kai taunts her, daring her to strike and calling her Silver Savior, forcing her to confront her guilt over killing his father. As she struggles with the decision to kill him, Kai grabs her wrist, pushes the weapon away, and rips off her scarf, revealing her silver hair and identity to the audience. The chapter ends with her exposure and the tension of their deadly standoff at its peak. In Chapter 15, Kai exposes Pedden's silver hair in the fighting ring, revealing her identity as the Silver Savior to the crowd. The cellar erupts in chaos, and Kai declares her his property, using his authority as Ilya's enforcer to intimidate the onlookers and escort her out safely. Outside, he maintains control, dragging her through Door's streets as they trade barbed words about their past, their mistakes, and their shared bloodshed. Pedden seizes an opportunity to flip Kai over her shoulder and holds him at knife point, confronting him about killing her father 5 years earlier. Kai is shocked, seemingly unaware of the truth, and starts to respond when Imperials approach. Pedden wounds him and flees, leaving Kai injured and surrounded by his men. The chapter ends with Pedden on the run once again, their confrontation deepening the tension between them and confirming the depth of betrayal and vengeance driving her actions. In Chapter 16, Kai pursues Pedden through Door, wounded but relentless. While chasing her, he recalls his first mission at age 14. His father forced him to kill, and he realizes the man was Pedden's father. He corners her and reopens her thigh wound with a knife, capturing her despite her defiance. Too weak to resist, she is disguised under a scarf, and Kai secures a room at an inn while leaving his men outside. Inside, Pedden trembles from trauma as she stares at her own blood. Kai tends her injury, confessing he hadn't known who he killed that night, only that he followed orders. Their exchange exposes her hatred and his guilt, yet also an unspoken connection between them. As night falls, they strike a fragile truce. She takes the bed while he settles on the floor, both bound by shared history, lingering tension, and the unhealed wound of betrayal. In Chapter 17, Pedden resists the prince's urgency as he tries to wake her, reluctant to leave the comfort of the bed despite his threats. She reluctantly rises, wincing at a wound on her thigh. The prince notices her injury and questions her well-being, but she bitterly reminds him she's merely a mission. Their conversation reveals shared loss and trauma. Pedden has no home, no family, and the prince has also lost his father. Tension rises as they confront past actions. Pedden killed the king, whom the prince calls a father, highlighting the complexity of morality and vengeance. Despite their verbal sparring, the prince insists they leave immediately. As they navigate crowded streets, Pedden struggles with her bleeding leg. The prince tends to her wound, creating a temporary bandage with care and precision, mixing practicality with subtle attentiveness. With her injury managed, they prepare to continue their perilous journey, the prince guiding her through the chaos toward their uncertain destination. In Chapter 18, Kai experiences the unfamiliar sensation of fresh air as he stands by the window, reflecting on his isolation and routine of discarding uneaten food to appease the servants. His solitude is interrupted by his cousin Andy, who enters under the pretense of repairing the window. Andy, skilled in fixing and mending from her upbringing as a handy, acknowledges the chaos left by Kai and attempts to reconnect, noting the challenges Kai faces as a new king after his father's brutal murder. Their conversation touches on grief, responsibility, and the burdens of leadership, with Andy offering support and urging Key to leave the study and interact with others, including Jax. Kai, however, insists he is fine, concealing his pain and the weight of his loss. Andy challenges him about the broken window as a metaphor for his emotional state, but Kai ultimately declares it beyond repair, signaling his continuing struggle with grief and isolation. In Chapter 19, Pedden is restrained by coarse ropes in the desert as the prince's enforcer controls her, while the prince supervises, showing clear possession over her. Despite her protests and attempts to assert independence, she is tethered to a horse and forced to follow the prince and his entourage across the desert under the scorching sun, her wound worsening with each step. The prince observes her carefully, occasionally stepping in to protect her from harm and even tending to her injured thigh, revealing unexpected care beneath his cold, territorial demeanor. Pedden struggles with her conflicted feelings, hating her dependence while recognizing moments of vulnerability and intimacy with the prince. As night falls, she staggers through the desert, improvises a plan to conceal a dagger, and pretends compliance. Eventually, she allows the prince to help her mount the horse, maintaining her cautious defiance while acknowledging the dangerous, complicated dynamic between them. In Chapter 20, Kai observes Gray asleep against his chest, noting her exhaustion from days of fighting in the ring and surviving on little food. Despite considering her his prisoner and his mission, he shows fleeting care, allowing a private moment before waking her. They banter as she struggles to mount and dismount the horse, arguing about where she will sleep, ultimately settling beside him. Their conversation shifts to Ilya's history and the tension between ordinaries and elites, discussing the plague, the quarantine, the banning of ordinaries, and the weakening disease that threatens elite powers. Gray challenges the natural order of elites' dominance, suggesting integration with ordinaries. They quietly debate Ilya's future, the isolation, and potential for change, revealing her perspective shaped by life in the slums. As they finally settle for the night, Kai wraps her legs for warmth. Their brief peace ends abruptly when arrows strike their camp, and Gray warns him to stay still, revealing herself as the source. In Chapter 21, Pedden holds a knife to Kai's neck after the final Imperial falls, signaling a tense standoff. The Resistance reinforcements arrive. Lenny, Lena, and Finn, who rescue Pedden and subdue Kai, binding him as a captive despite his oath to protect the prince. Pedden reunites emotionally with Lenny, Lena, and Finn, recognizing their arrows and understanding their identities. They mount horses to leave the desert, heading toward Dor while discussing the aftermath of the Bull and the failed resistance. Lena confirms the resistance is finished. Any surviving members are in hiding. Callum and Mira are likely in the king's custody. Pedden reflects on the destruction of her house during the battle. Lenny reassures her, emphasizing her resilience. They discuss Ilya's unstable situation. The new king isolates himself, grieves, and the people are restless while the queen is unwell. Pedden processes the kingdom's unrest, her role in the king's death, and begins learning to ride a beast under Lenny's guidance. In Chapter 22, Pedin and the group follow Lenny through the back streets of Dor to a hidden refuge inside an abandoned building. There, dozens of people, including men, women, and children, sleep on scattered bedrolls. Lenny introduces his mother Meredith, who explains the purpose of the refuge. It shelters individuals called mixes, partial elites, and ordinaries who cannot survive safely in Ilya or other cities due to their limited powers. Meredith and Lenny care for these marginalized people, including Luna, a young girl whose blazer ability manifests only in her fingers. Other partial power holders step forward, demonstrating their abilities and sharing how they came to the refuge. Pedin, Lena, and Finn observe and interact with the group while considering how to handle the bound prince. The group settles in, sharing food and resting, while Pedin and the others plan to watch over the prince, realizing the refuge's role in protecting those rejected by society. In Chapter 23, Kai has been tied up for nearly 2 days after the ambush in the Scorches, his hands numb and sore. Pedin keeps watch, teasing him, while Lenny explains their plan. They will ride to Ilya at night, deliver Kai to the king's enforcer under crossbow threat, and exchange him for Pedin's freedom. Kai doubts the plan, aware of the elite's unpredictable power he cannot yet control. Meredith distributes food, and Finn takes the first watch, allowing Pedin some rest. Kai and Pedin share a quiet moment in the bedroll, hands eventually tied together, and he reassures her about their cramped cell, easing her panic. Later, they are confronted by Raphael, who reveals he orchestrated their capture for profit and leaves them in a foul-smelling prison beneath the city, offering stale bread. Kai and Pedin agree escaping is imperative, refusing to return to Ilya as prisoners. In Chapter 24, Kit, overwhelmed by the pressures of kingship, is visited by Callum, who offers guidance on ruling the kingdom. Kit struggles with the weight of responsibility and feels like an inadequate king, haunted by his father's death and the people he has yet to confront. Callum emphasizes the necessity of addressing the kingdom directly to prevent rumors and shares his latest suggestion presented in a small velvet box, urging Kit to make a difficult choice for the good of the realm. The discussion focuses on the sacrifices required of a king, including abandoning the boy he once was to become the leader his people need. Kit recalls his father's motto, the 3 Bs, brave, benevolent, and brutal, as the standard for ruling. Callum reinforces that carrying out this act will demand all 3 qualities. Kit, though hesitant and emotional, accepts the box, understanding that this is part of his transformation into the true king. In Chapter 25, Pedin and Kai struggle to stand and maneuver in their prison cell, their wrists tied and rope abrasive against the stone. Kai works to saw through the bindings, while Pedin guesses gray objects in the cell to distract herself. The guard delivers minimal food and water, unaware of the escape plan forming. Kai finally frees them, and together they subdue the guard, take his key, and unlock the cell door. They sprint toward the sewer, wading through rapidly rising, freezing water while guards give chase. Exhaustion, fear, and the threat of drowning push Pedin to panic, but Kai steadies her. Amid the chaos, they share a raw, emotional conversation about regret, their past, and the fleeting intensity of their bond, acknowledging the dangers ahead. The chapter culminates in a desperate, passionate kiss in the water-filled tunnel, uniting them in a moment of reckless intimacy before confronting the uncertainty of their escape. In Chapter 26, Kai and Pedin are trapped underwater in a collapsing tunnel, struggling to survive. As the water rises, Kai holds Pedin close, instructing her to wrap her legs around him to stay afloat while he keeps them both above water. Amid panic, they share a desperate, intense kiss, acknowledging fear and closeness. Pedin discovers a metal grate in the ceiling, allowing air, and begins frantically tearing at the stone covering it. Kai supports her while she works, their movements complicated by the rising water and low ceiling. Kai grows exhausted, nearly losing the ability to keep them afloat. With a final push, he lifts the grate enough for Pedin to reach air. She escapes through the opening, coughing and alive, while Kai, drained and heavy, sinks into the water, accepting his imminent death with relief that she is safe. Their struggle concludes with Pedin saved and Kai surrendering to the water. In Chapter 27, Pedin crawls into an alley, gasping and retching from a sewer escape, realizing she is alive while the enforcer sinks in the water below. Despite the danger, she dives in and drags him to the surface, fighting panic and exhaustion. She clears the chain around his neck and performs CPR, reviving him after he nearly drowns. Exhausted but relieved, They share a quiet moment, acknowledging their mutual survival and the unspoken bond formed through the ordeal. They discuss past losses, ideal deaths, and the constant presence of danger, hinting at their complex relationship of captor and captive, enemy and reluctant ally. As they rest, the enforcer gradually inches closer, attempting intimacy, but their moment is interrupted when he fastens a chain connecting their ankles, ensuring Pedin cannot escape. She struggles with her emotions, understanding she is tethered to her captor and that the chain is both literal and symbolic of her current predicament. In Chapter 28, Kai struggles with guilt and tension as he leads Pedin, still shackled to him by a chain, through the city streets. Their silence reflects the broken trust between them, compounded by the dangers of being recognized. Pedin retrieves her pack and a scarf to disguise herself, while Kai uses a bandana to cover his face. They seek a place for a bath and fresh clothes, hindered by the chain binding them. Reaching a busier street, Kai insists Pedin steal a skirt to cover the chain, prompting her first words in hours. She distracts a merchant, retrieves a skirt, and dons it over her pants, partially concealing the chain. Kai wraps the remaining chain around her ankle, minimizing its visibility. Moving carefully through the streets, they simulate a couple to avoid suspicion. As night falls, they arrive at a rundown inn, finally reaching a safe place for a bath and rest. In Chapter 29, Kai leads Pedin to Door's Nest, a hidden inn, deciding to sneak inside through unlocked windows rather than alert the innkeeper. They find one room occupied and another empty, allowing Kai to help Pedin climb inside, despite the chain binding her ankle. Once inside, Pedin prepares for a bath while keeping Kai chained outside the washroom. During this, they discuss their recent shared experiences. Pedin admits she couldn't kill again, reflecting on her moral struggle, while Kai reassures her that she isn't defined by the lives taken. They recall past events, the soldier in the desert, Sadie's burial, and how Kai's actions spared her from further bloodshed. Pedin reveals she watched Kai carry the Imperial, explaining her inability to act against him. Kai retrieves a shirt and discovers a journal belonging to Pedin's father, a healer, which she saved from the house Kai had burned. Their quiet interaction ends with her finishing her bath and inviting Kai to join. In Chapter 30, Pedin and Kai wake together, bound by a chain, navigating the tension between them while sharing a bed. Despite prior betrayals, Kai insists on keeping her warm, and Pedin reluctantly accepts, acknowledging their usefulness to each other. Morning light reveals their closeness. Pedin disentangles herself from him, and they prepare to leave. Kai retrieves his damp shirt and clothing, which Pedin selectively chooses to take, honoring a promise to Adena. They plan to cross Door and the Sanctuary of Souls, a dangerous territory, with Kai confident despite past hardships. A sudden knock at the inn interrupts them, prompting a quick escape through the window. Pedin and Kai navigate merchant streets, dodging pursuers. Kai uses Pedin's hat and scarf to disguise her, and he guides her in pretending to be a couple to avoid attention. Their escape is tense but successful, and they move forward, ready to continue their journey together. In Chapter 31, Kai wrestles with the absence of his enforcer and a missing woman, questioning whether they are running away from him or together. He receives a report from a masked Imperial confirming no sightings, and he orders continued searches at the city's edge. Alone, Key reflects on his father's lessons and the contrast between the enforcer's loyalty to his father and his own feelings of abandonment. He digs through his desk to retrieve a small box he hides daily, contemplating the kingdom's perception of his grief and his own descent into darker thoughts. Kai mourns lost innocence and the carefree life he once had with his brothers Kai and Jax, recalling moments of closeness, particularly after Ava's death. Resolving to stop hating each day, he rolls his shoulders under the weight of leadership and begins writing letters. One to the man he resents, and another to the woman who occupies his thoughts, recording his fears and longing. In Chapter 32, Kai and Pedin navigate tension and danger as they attempt to leave Door. Pedin, bound by a rope and previously caught trying to attack Kai, reluctantly accepts his control while maintaining her defiant attitude. They discuss their path to the Sanctuary of Souls, acknowledging the threat Kit poses and the uncertainty of his plans for them. Climbing down from the roof, they maneuver cautiously through the outskirts of the city, avoiding populated areas while Pedin manages her chain. Pedin expresses frustration at seeing her own face on wanted posters, and a man mocks them about the chain, prompting Kai to protect her. Later, 4 men, including one recognizing Pedin as the Silver Savior, pursue them, forcing Kai and Pedin to flee into a crowded alley. To avoid capture, they enter a gentleman's club, where Kai disguises Pedin and positions her on his lap. They attempt to blend in while participating in the card game to avoid drawing attention. In Chapter 33, Pedin accompanies Kai to a gambling table, concealing their true intentions while two men surveil them. To blend in, Pedin sits on Kai's lap and pretends to be his companion, choosing cards as part of the ruse. Kai keeps her close, instructing her to relax and act naturally, while she constantly reminds herself the intimacy is only a performance. The men approach but eventually lose interest, allowing them to leave safely. Once outside, they walk cautiously through the city, remaining alert until confident they are no longer followed. During this, Pedin reflects on her life of pretending and her psychic ability, recalling past betrayals. She brings up the king, Kit, questioning if he worries about Kai. Their conversation shifts to the past killing of Pedin's father, with Kai revealing he never intended to kill him, acting in panic under circumstances the king anticipated. They continue, uneasy but moving forward. In Chapter 34, Kai and Pedin navigate the deserted edge of the city toward the Sanctuary of Souls, passing wary strangers due to the bandit threat. Tension between them eases as Kai notices her braid unraveling, prompting a private conversation. Pedin misunderstands Kai's past relationships, and he clarifies that he has only ever braided her hair and his late sister Ava's, recounting Ava's tragic birth, secret life, and eventual death. He explains that Ava's illness forced her to be hidden from the kingdom, and that he learned to braid her hair to spend time with her. The conversation softens their dynamic, and they prepare to move before nightfall, navigating a barn loft while avoiding detection. They discuss the threat of mixes, Pedin's background as an ordinary, and her parents' past. They plan a brief rest before continuing to the sanctuary, sharing quiet, tense intimacy and light-hearted banter while remaining vigilant for danger. In Chapter 35, Pedin is chained to Kai as they leave the barn to steal a horse for their journey. Kai fights off a large man, helping Pedin mount the horse while he climbs behind her, chain taut between them. They navigate the streets toward the Sanctuary of Souls, dodging obstacles and people, and finally rest at the sanctuary as night falls. Kai explains its history, including Queen Marina's solitary burial and the separate resting place of Ava. Pedin questions his motivations for caring for her beyond the king's orders. That night, Kai and Pedin engage in a slow, intimate dance. Through it, Kai reveals his deep feelings and the story of Ava, a crawler who was weak, and whom he supported by kissing her fingers to give strength until her death. He explains that Pedin's spirit reminds him of what Ava could have become. Their dance becomes both a moment of comfort and emotional revelation, connecting past loss, care, and the complex bond growing between them. In Chapter 36, Kai wakes to find Pedin asleep beside him, her head crushing his arm. Despite knowing her past as an ordinary and her role in killing the king, he struggles with his feelings for her. They share a quiet, tense intimacy as she stirs, teasing and challenging him while testing his patience. Kai notices a wound on his stomach, inflicted by a stable hand, which Pedin quickly cleans with a makeshift cloth, expressing concern for his well-being. They discuss her reasons for staying in Ilia despite the dangers, emphasizing her stubbornness, desire to defy the king, and sense of purpose within the resistance. Kai reveals his own acts of subtle defiance and the consequences that led him to her, highlighting their shared past struggles. After securing his wound, they ready themselves to continue their journey. Pedin requests to learn riding the horse, signaling their ongoing cooperation and growing trust despite their complicated history. In Chapter 37, Kit leaves his study, the dungeon he's been confined to, and walks through the castle, carrying a heavy box that grounds him in control. He notices the reactions of servants, hoping they gossip about anything other than his madness. Approaching the kitchen, he hesitates at the sound of Gale's booming voice, retreating briefly before she calls him out. Gale embraces him warmly, offering a sticky bun she's been preparing daily, and clears the kitchen so they can be alone. She notices he's been avoiding meals and questions him about his well-being, prompting Kit to admit he's better, though uncertain of what that truly means. Gale gently addresses his grief over his father and the lingering betrayal that haunts him. She asks about his plans for her once Kai returns, causing Kit to voice his fear that Kai might love her more. Distracted, he notices a forgotten birthday candle for Ava, Kai's daughter, and overwhelmed, he flees through the returning servants, letting them assume his madness. In Chapter 38, Pedin and Kai traverse a rocky tunnel in search of bandit weapons, collecting 5 arrowheads and speculating a bow must be nearby. Pedin spots a glint above, climbs a tree and rocks, and retrieves the bow, then discovers a hidden grove behind the stone. The grove is a serene sanctuary with drooping trees, soft grass, vibrant foliage, and a sparkling pool, long predating the Sanctuary of Souls' dark reputation. Pedin recalls Kai's past act of burying Sadie there. They share an intimate moment by the pool before entering the water to wash off, removing their packs and clothing. The frigid pool challenges them, and Kai ensures Pedin stays safe as the water deepens. They reflect on their complex relationship, acknowledging history, enmity, and unspoken feelings. Despite warnings and past tension, they allow themselves closeness, culminating in a passionate, lingering kiss in the rain, tempered by their shared agreement to pretend and maintain secrecy for the sanctuary. In Chapter 39, Pedin and Kai are drenched by a storm after leaving the pool and find a brief moment of peace lying in the grass. Their horse is gone, forcing them to walk along a flooded road until they take shelter under a natural rock canopy. Kai gathers firewood, while Pedin discovers 2 matches and uses shreds of her father's journal to ignite the damp fire. She finds a personal diary hidden in the journal, revealing her father's refusal to leave the slums and his secret work against the king, including building the resistance to protect ordinaries. Pedin reads aloud his entries detailing efforts to train ordinaries, his marriage to Alice, her death, and the care of Pedin as a baby. She realizes she was an orphan before losing her father, struggling with betrayal and grief. Kai comforts her, emphasizing her father's love. They continue reading the journal, learning about the resistance, Pedin's training, and the dangers she must navigate, concluding with the journal's final entry. In Chapter 40, Kai and Gray wake after a restless night under their stone shelter, both weighed down by the revelations from the journal. Gray remains quiet, struggling with sleeplessness and the implications of discovering she isn't diseased, while Kai processes the betrayal of his father and the healers. They discuss their plans to uncover the truth, with Kai determined to interrogate the healers and inform Kit of the journal's contents. Despite their tension, a brief, teasing intimacy occurs, highlighting the complicated dynamic between them. They prepare to leave the shelter, exchanging banter about flirting, past hatred, and duty, acknowledging the danger and responsibility they carry. Their dialogue reveals personal stakes, emotional tension, and the burden of past actions. As they move through the damp terrain, the chapter closes with a sudden ambush. Kai is attacked by bandits, signaling imminent physical danger and forcing them to confront threats beyond their internal conflicts. In Chapter 41, Pedin and Kai are ambushed by bandits while traveling, and Kai is struck by an arrow in the shoulder. Pedin drags him behind rocks, sustaining a graze to her calf, and systematically kills 7 attackers with her archery. She struggles with guilt and anger over taking lives, while Kai reassures her and urges caution. They move toward the sanctuary caves, navigating past the bodies, and Pedin kills 1 more assailant, with Kai emphasizing she has done enough. Reaching a promising cave, Pedin tends to Kai's wound, washing and bandaging it with limited water and fabric, while he expresses his admiration and shares that he secretly envied her for killing his father. Overwhelmed by the blood and memories of past deaths, Pedin asks Kai to cut her long braids, symbolically releasing the weight of her guilt. Kai carefully helps, then washes her hands and comforts her, holding her close as she begins to feel a glimmer of relief. In Chapter 42, Kit revisits the West Tower for the first time since the little girl he once knew occupied it. He struggles with the weight of grief over his father's recent death, avoiding his father's grave but resolving to support his stepmother, now seriously ill. Reflecting on his growth and Callum's guidance, he steels himself to appear kingly as he navigates the castle's halls. Reaching the isolation wing, he encounters Jax, who updates him on the Queen's condition and shares a brief, heartfelt reunion that reminds Kit of simpler, happier times. Alone with his stepmother, Kit listens as she apologizes for their distant relationship and recounts her love for his father, revealing the depth of their bond and her current suffering. She reassures Kit that he will honor his father's legacy and mentions letters his father left for guidance. Kit promises to return, strengthened by the connection and responsibility he now bears. In Chapter 43, Kai and Gray share a quiet, intimate moment in the cave, reflecting on the emotional and physical scars they carry. Gray reveals the lasting trauma from Medina's death, explaining her sensitivity to blood, while Kai tends to her arrow wound and bandages it. They discuss the lies they've been told about the ordinaries and the complexity of family and allegiance, with Gray realizing her own origins and the gap between blood and love. As they prepare to continue to Ilya, Kai notices her dagger and silver braid left behind, symbolic of a part of her she leaves in the cave. The journey to Ilya is marked by pain, fatigue, and mutual observation, revealing each other's habits, abilities, and vulnerabilities. Upon reaching a field of vibrant poppies, they pause to enjoy the beauty and freedom of the moment. Kai and Gray share a playful, tender dance amid the flowers, savoring the fleeting peace before facing the king, agreeing to pretend the moment isn't tainted by their looming responsibilities. In Chapter 44, Pedin and Kai rest in a field of soft red petals after their long walk across the Eld, far from the nearby castle. Pedin creates a flower crown for Kai, recalling past memories with Adina, while he struggles to make his own. Their playful interaction turns serious when Kai notices Pedin's scarred shoulder. She reluctantly reveals the mutilation caused by a sword inflicted by the man who killed her father and attempted to murder her, branding her with a permanent reminder. Kai's anger surges, and they briefly spar, testing each other physically while emotions run high. Eventually, Pedin allows him to examine the scar, explaining why she hid it, shame and trauma. Kai reassures her, emphasizing her strength and resilience rather than her suffering. They share an intimate moment, embracing among the flowers, finding comfort and closeness. The chapter closes with quiet intimacy, gentle teasing and laughter as night falls over them. In Chapter 45, Kai awakens to sunlight, aware that their mission's end is near. He reflects on his duty to the king and feelings of unworthiness toward Pedin, who remains asleep beside him. After several attempts, he wakes her, and they share playful intimacy, threading flowers into his hair and exchanging teasing words. Their conversation grows serious as they confront the tension between their emotions and roles as enemies. Kai expresses insecurity about being enough for her, while Pedin reminds him of the expectations placed upon them, shouting that he is meant to hate her. Despite this, she confesses it is easier to maintain enmity than vulnerability. Kai struggles with his feelings, but allows himself to drop his mask for her, admitting he has no choice in the matter of his attraction to her due to his obligations. Pedin listens, questioning and confronting his motivations, foreshadowing their continued tension between duty and desire. In Chapter 46, Pedin and Kai confront the depth of their feelings for each other. Kai admits he has loved her since the moment she attacked him, revealing himself as vulnerable and stripped of his enforcer masks. He confesses that her eyes are his favorite color, and that her presence has power over him. Pedin forgives him for past conflicts, acknowledging that she could never harm him fully despite wanting to. They share intimate confessions, teasing, and kisses, solidifying their emotional and physical connection while struggling with the danger surrounding them. Kai prioritizes her safety, attempting to free her from their tether and instructing her to flee to Isram, promising to stall the search for her. Pedin resists running without him, and Kai vows to track her relentlessly if necessary. Their moment of intimacy is cut short when Kai spots two flashes approaching, signaling imminent danger, and he urges Pedin to play along as a plan unfolds. In Chapter 47, Pedin and Kai arrive at the Imperials, who express surprise at their late arrival. Kai asserts dominance, threatening one who questions his abilities and ordering the removal of Pedin's chain. She retaliates against an insult, drawing Kai's cold, possessive warning to any further harm. An Imperial pries the chain from her ankle, cutting her and drawing blood, while Kai shows fleeting remorse. Despite the pain, Pedin remains defiant, recalling her lifelong skill at evasion. Both Imperials restrain her wrists with iron cuffs, and Kai commands them to prepare a horse for her transport. Dragged behind the horse through the city streets, Pedin faces jeers from elites and mundanes alike, reflecting social inequities. Memories of Kai and their past moments together resurface as they near the palace. At the castle, Kai cuts the rope tethering her, leads her to the staircase, and touches her arm, leaving Pedin torn between fear, defiance, and unspoken longing, bracing for the confrontation with the king. In Chapter 48, Kai escorts Pedin into the throne room, aware he is bringing her into danger and duty beyond his control. He reflects on his longing and love for her, masked by pretension and the cold persona of the enforcer. Both are disheveled and bloodied from their journey, drawing stares from imperials and nobles alike. Pedon's anxiety is visible in her fidgeting fingers, and Kai communicates his hidden message of love through a subtle gesture before opening the heavy doors. Inside, the court witnesses their arrival. The crowd notes their worn and injured appearance. Kai maintains a mask of indifference, controlling Pedon as they approach the dais. He forces her to kneel before King Kit, who examines both of them, noting their delayed return and asking about unforeseen circumstances. Kai gives curt responses, signaling the challenges they faced on the journey while masking his true emotions, leaving the tension between duty, danger, and unspoken feelings palpable. In Chapter 49, Pedon kneels before King Kit, noticing he has not looked at her yet. The court watches as Kit questions Kai about other unforeseen circumstances, hinting at Pedon's involvement. Kai lies, denying any additional events. Kit scrutinizes Pedon, noting her injuries, her role as a former contestant in the purging trials, and her status as a silver savior and traitor. He publicly accuses her of being a resistance member and of conspiring with them, confirming her participation in the assassination of the former king. Pedon admits to these crimes, prompting murmurs from the court. Kit reflects on his sudden ascension to the throne and his grief for his father, but assures the court his decisions will be calculated, not erratic. Finally, Kit commands Pedon to stand. He presents a small velvet box, revealing a sparkling ring, and declares that she is to be his bride, leaving Pedon stunned at the unexpected turn in her fate. Epilogue. Kai watches helplessly as Pedon is claimed by King Kit, who has declared her his bride. Overwhelmed, Kai feels as though he is drowning, unable to intervene or confess his love. The court surrounds them, and Kai struggles with the pain of seeing her married to another, knowing he must mask his emotions. He reflects on his past failings, fearing he will never deserve her, and mourns the loss of the life they could have shared. Despite the agony, he resolves to silently love her from a distance, suppressing his feelings while watching her future unfold with Kit. Kai envisions the intimate moments he longs to share with Pedon, remembering the connection they had, but accepts that he must step away, leaving her kneeling before the man who will now hold her heart. He is consumed by grief, knowing he may never experience the love he feels for her.